Hello everyone, Anita here and welcome to another painting video. Today we are working on a quite small painting. It's an A5 size painting and I'm working on a 300 gram Arches watercolor paper. It has not been pre-stretched, I've just taped it to this board and here I'm showing you all the things I'm using. So I'm working of course with my watercolors. And these are Van Gogh watercolors. There is a whole video about the supplies I'm using, so you can look it up on my channel. I'm also going to be using this strip of paper underneath my painting is a painting swatch, and it's the same kind of paper that I'm painting on. This here is a dropper tool. I use it to add water to either dilute my paints or wetten my paints. I have 2 cups of water. One for dirty water, cleaning my brushes, and one for clean water. Then I have 2 palettes, and these are just dishes that I picked up at a secondhand store. And I have my brushes. And because this is a small painting, I'm using mostly smaller brushes, with the exception of this flat brush, which I will be using to make the whole area of the painting wet. It's always better to have a bigger brush for that. I've also planned to use this water brush at some point. I bought it not so long ago and I can't seem to find my regular, my favorite brand of brushes. So I'm trying to experiment with the water brushes, but it was a no-go, so you can just forget about it. And here I am wetting my paper and dropping some blue in it. As you can see, this painting is of a flying pig. And this is a remake of an older painting of mine. I've had this idea a few years ago, and it originally was part of a bag. And yes, you've heard it right. It was an acrylic painting that I've done as a front of a bag that I've sewn for a friend. And then I lost touch with that friend, and now I really wanted to have that painting in my collection again. So I've decided to remake it and see actually how I've changed my style and my technique in during those years. And nothing much changed about the idea itself. It is just a flying pig flying through the sky. And so I started with that sky because I wanted to have white clouds on a darker background. And I really wanted to have a bit of a teal to blue darker background so that those white clouds would nicely stand out. There is a bit of a curved round shape underneath that pig to represent maybe a horizon. However, I did not want it to be too I didn't want it to be too specific. It was just, it's very abstract background, just some blobs of color. And what I'm doing is that I'm putting it in layers. So I will wet the paper, add color, dry it, then wet it again, add color, dry it, and this way I'm building up the intensity of color. I'm trying to add a little bit of movement. I wanted the movement to go on a diagonal so that it would seem that the pig is flying kind of on a diagonal line. And so I'm trying to direct the color and the movement in that diagonal direction. So I'm just adding the same color all the time. This is actually these are all 3 colors. These were 3 colors. I used cerulean blue and that teal color that I like so much. I don't remember the color of it, but it's a pre-mixed teal. I have a little pan of it. And then I've added Prussian blue just to darken it a little bit because cerulean blue is so light. And I really wanted to have a bit of a cooler intensity, cooler tone to the blue. So now I'm trying to add a little bit more depth in the sky. Now I'm still remembering that I want the clouds to be white. I don't really want the cloud shapes to be visible now, with the exception of some spaces, and just mostly because I wanted to do it for myself, so that I wouldn't lose the image in my head, that I wouldn't forget that the clouds are still there. It's very hard to explain, but it's sometimes adding that detail, even though it's not necessary, like adding that little outline of a cloud. It helps me focus more on the direction the painting is taking. So that after I'm done with the background, and it was very hard to stop painting. I could just keep adding layers. It's a very relaxing way of painting. I'm adding colors to the pig, and I've pre-mixed this kind of dirty shade of pink. Well, it's not really, it's like an orangish pink. I call it a pig color, like you would have a pig in a picture book. That's the color it would have. And I'm trying not to make it too flat. Now, something that I've changed recently is that I really do not like it anymore if my color is completely flat. And by that, I don't mean the wash. I just mean that the color, I like it better if the color has some variety in the wash. So while I'm doing the flat wash of color like I would usually do, I still love that, I'm going to add a little bit more color in some places. I'm going to add a little bit more water in some places to make it lighter. And this way, the wash is a little bit more interesting. And I usually try to do it in the direction of the shadows, but not necessarily. Especially when you're working like me with very light washes. Even if one wash is a bit out of place, so the shadows are a bit out of place, because I'm working, as you can see, with more than one layer, it doesn't really matter that much. I can always correct that in another layer. So I'm just having fun mostly, just adding a little bit of color, adding a bit of water, and I really loved the process of making this little painting. And of course, I'm drying every single layer in between very, very thoroughly. The paper was warping a little bit more than I would like. It was very hard to keep it in, to have some control over it actually. And I think it's because I taped it wrong. That was a mistake on my side. I realized it too late. And of course, after you're, when you're using a heat gun like I do to dry the painting, and you want to go near the edges where the tape is, of course, the tape will also start moving a bit because the glue is getting warm. So some edges were actually ungluing themselves. It was very hard to keep control over the painting, but in the end it came out well. It's just the background really that was causing me some trouble. Then I had a problem with the little balloons. Now, in initial design, the initial idea I had for this picture, there is we can call it like a light source inside the balloons. But I didn't really take that into consideration while painting this version. And I didn't even think about it while I was preparing to paint this version. And so I had a very big problem with, like, what am I going to do with these balloons? Because, like I've said, I didn't know how to finish them. In the original painting, they're hollow, they're transparent, and you can see all those sparkly bits inside. But I really liked the idea that in this painting, it was the clouds that were the focal point, really, that were adding that little bit of sparkle. And so I had to figure something out to do with the balloons. So while I'm adding those little details over here, I'm finishing the leather straps, which is a little bit morbid when you think about it. I'm constantly thinking, what should I do with the balloons? And so at first I've decided, okay, I'm going to add a little bit of shadow just to give them a little bit of depth, differentiate them from one another, and see where that takes me. So I let that dry and I move on to adding shadows to the pig. And then I usually take a step back in situations like that when I don't know what to do or where to go from a certain point during the painting process. I take a step back. I will go eat a sandwich. I will clean a bit. I will do something else. Even take a walk. Sometimes even sleep. Sometimes it takes a few days to finish a painting like that. And then when I come back, I have a fresh view. And sometimes it helps a lot because I just get all of a sudden, oh, well, this needs to be darker or this needs to be lighter. And immediately I know what to do next. So very important tip. Don't be afraid to take a break and step away from your painting. So I'm just adding shadows here. I am in love with that idea of a blue shadow lately. It looks a little bit funny in some places, but I really love it. And I really thought it complemented that dirty pink that I was working with. So you can see me here adding first shadows with just the same blue that I've used in the background. And then I'm adding a little bit more defined shadows when it was just, when there's a small painting, sometimes it's very hard to have nice, even shadows. So I've noticed that it's much nicer to use that blue pencil just to go back and make it a little bit more even, let's put it this way. And then I've added some extra lines to make some patches on those balloons because I've decided to just go, instead of making them very distinctive and very detailed, I've decided, you know what, I'm just going to make them look like they're part of that whole contraptions that the pig is wearing. And I've added some patches and just added a little bit more brown, a little bit of cords, lines, and I think it looks really nice. So there's a little skip here because I was very unsure. I'm experimenting with putting in lines in different ways, and so I've added a few different mediums to the lines. There was a watercolor pencil, there was a regular pencil, some of that blue pencil that I used to use for sketching, for the underpainting, and in the end before I noticed, I was done. So I moved immediately to the clouds, and what I'm doing here is I'm using my white acrylic gouache in trying to make it into a gradient. Now I'm working in very thin layers, and I'm adding a few layers one after the other. So I will, as you can see, I'm drying in between. I'll add a layer, dry, add another layer, dry, add another layer, until the intensity and the evenness is acceptable to my eye. It's actually much easier for me to add more than one layer instead of one thicker one. I don't know, I feel like the result is much nicer than if I would just make it in one layer. Perhaps it's just the way I'm painting, because I've seen other painters just make it in one layer. But for me, it's much easier to just take it easy, take it slow, and just paint those clouds in a few layers. And so they create that kind of, because I'm using a watered down gouache. As you know, gouache is opaque. But because I'm using it in a watered down version, it becomes sort of a milky, translucent film. And because of that, it adds that softness and that fluffy effect of clouds and like kind of a misty effect. I absolutely love translucent watered down gouache. It looks amazing. And so it kind of tied this whole painting for me together. And I knew it would come out like this since the beginning, but it was very hard to see that just with that blue layer in the back. So yeah, and that's pretty much it. That there is nothing more to that painting. I'm adding a few white details right now as the last touch. Still loving my white details even after that big break we had in painting. And that's pretty much it. It's a very, very simple painting. It took quite a long time, but I'm very, very happy with how it came out. Sometimes it's very, very beneficial, I think, to make a little bit less detailed painting. I kind of come back from one side to the other. I say that I love details, and then I make a very detailed painting, and I'm very tired with it because, let's be honest, details take time. And sometimes when we don't have the time, it can be very daunting to start a detailed painting. So then it's really nice to just take a step back and just do a simple painting like this one. And here, as you can see, another little touch, I'm adding those diagonal lines just to emphasize the movement of the pig. And yeah, this was it. This was the last touch. Here you can see a close-up of the video of the pig. I really love the texture that was created with the watercolors and with the gouache. There's this very soft look that almost looks to me like a colored pencil layered together. It looks very nice, and I had a lot of fun painting it. And I hope you guys had fun watching it. So if you like this video, please leave me a like and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Thank you so much for watching. Bye!